Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Drafted Pages podcast. Really excited to bring this back to life, revive it from the dead. Life got in the way, but I'm starting a whole new series with my CG boys at Watermark, and we got my boy Kevin coming on the first episode. Kevin, great to have you here.
Great to be here.
Yeah, I'm.
Thanks for having me.
Of course, dude. I'm excited. Like I said, I want to do this with everybody in our CG. I think everyone's got a really great story to tell, and love hanging out with you guys. So why not?
Yeah.
Why not get the podcast rolling with you boys on
Yeah.
it first?
Well, I'm honored you picked me first.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just it worked out schedule wise. To be
Okay.
honest,
I'm gonna tell myself something
with
different.
everything. But no, Kevin, you're a great dude, and you got a great story. We've all shared our testimonies with one another and gotten into some details with Faith Walk. That's part of doing community together. And so I'd love to just dive right in to kind of your story. Kind of the floor is yours. You can
Okay.
be as detailed as you want to be, but kind of just like how'd you find God? What made you like want to accept God as your Savior, and kind of how has that changed your life since that point forward?
Well, I will start with the fact that I didn't know God for a really long time. I grew up in Oregon, Salem, Oregon, lived there my whole life, and faith just wasn't a part of how I was raised. I have a twin brother, mom and dad, who I lived with. Grew up having enough, playing sports. I feel like I fit in pretty well at school. I feel like life was just pretty good. And I guess I just never kind of made faith a priority. My parents, it wasn't a part of how we were raised. And I feel like part of my story is just like that life was good. And so I didn't need God. I didn't need anything like extra at the time, or so I thought. And so um, I guess I would kind of fast forward all the way to like after college, uh, which is about like 3 years ago. Um, I feel like I had everything that life or society would tell me I would need to be happy and like be succeeding in life. Like I had a girlfriend, I had a job, I had a college degree, I had my own place, had my own like new car, and there was just like something that missing. Like I didn't feel content. I felt constantly stressed and anxious. Porn was a part of my story, so just growing up and trying to hide that habit that I had because I didn't want people to know and think of me differently. Um, and I think that led to me like seeking validation from others and feeling like I needed to act a certain way to get their approval, which was just kind of like vanity. I felt like I would do this and then get approval from whether it was my girlfriend or parents or friends or family or whoever. I just like had to be liked and had to kind of put on a persona that was like different just as a way to like cope with the shame from that addiction to pornography. Um, and yeah, I just like there was something missing. Like I would lay my head on my pillow and be like, "Am I really known by anybody? Am I really loved by anybody? Like, would people still love me if they knew about this?" Um, so that was about 3 years ago when I remember starting to have these thoughts, and I feel like since then it was like it had to have been God just moving, like a series of steps that I could never have done by myself. I feel like I kind of told you this a few weeks back, and the guys, but He took me out of that relationship, um, moved me 4 or 5 hours away from Portland, which is where I was living, which is urban, faster paced, younger, um, to like a rural town where family lived, not a lot of young people, not a lot going on, slower, and people there knew God more than in Portland. And so I went to church for the first time, and I just remember hearing the message from the pastor and that really was the first time it started to sink in, which was that God made us in His image for His glory, and that He knows us. He knows everything we've done, everything we will ever do, and he loves us anyway. I felt like I didn't have to, for a second, like I just felt like I didn't have to keep striving or like pretending to be somebody that I'm not to be accepted. Like I sort of felt accepted there in that church for a few minutes, and I was like, this is just awesome. Like, was almost moved to tears, and just hearing the gospel really for the first time in a way that I was open to it. Which again, it's Jesus paid the price for us. There's nothing that we have to do to earn it. We just have to accept him as our Lord and Savior. And that was in March of 2023 that I heard that message. And
So you're coming up on 2 years.
2 years.
Hearing that.
And it has gone by like so quick, and I feel like the person I was when I first heard that message to now, like I just feel completely transformed. Like I feel like I would characterize myself as someone who was so anxious, like always had to be in control of everything, because who was? Like I didn't know God. I didn't have a relationship with him. I didn't accept him. I didn't believe that any sort of almighty being had a plan for me. Like I just thought I had to do it. And it was a stressful thing to think. And you also just don't have like, now I'm like, what do people that aren't of the faith, like what do they think about the future? Like why are we here? Because I just didn't feel like there was a reason. And so it was kind of like empty and dark and vain without that. And now like I can just rest in the truth that like it's not up to me. There's a plan for me. I think a big thing for me was like letting things go that weren't for me. I feel like I was just constantly like jaw clenched, trying to like make things happen or hold on to people or things that I didn't want to lose, because I didn't really have an identity, or any sort of like self-love or confidence or like anything that I feel like I now have because of God and Jesus Christ. And so it has been such a fun journey these past 2 years. And then moving to Texas almost a year ago, meeting you guys over the summer and the fall, and going from like not knowing God to knowing him to like making Jesus the Lord of my life and having community that I'm like leaning on you guys every day, every week, being sharpening. It's just like such a blessing that I just don't really have the words sometimes.
That's so good, dude. You touched on so much there. I want to dive in a little bit deeper if we can. First one being confidence. I feel like this is the first thing that really stood out to me there. You mentioned your confidence has changed a lot since accepting Christ and like allowing him to kind of be the leader of your life. How would you describe that sense of confidence? Because I feel like people find their identity in things like you mentioned, like sports or other people or their work or their job, and maybe the success that they find there gives them confidence. How would you kind of describe the difference between those two?
I think of when you said that, Peter walking on the water, and he starts to sink when he looks away from Jesus. And Jesus is like, what are you doing? Like, look at me. And like, that's how I kind of feel about my life now. Like, things are not any easier than they were. Like, life is hard. We live in a broken world. But like, just knowing Jesus and like knowing that he like has his hand around my neck is just like, it just brings a peace that makes no sense. Like, that's a phrase I really like and reflect on a lot. And like, just knowing that he's there in the fire with me, that I'm not alone, just like, that just brings me confidence. And I think, I don't know, when I just didn't have that, it was like, I almost felt like, well, I said I felt like I had to do it myself, but I felt like I couldn't. Like I knew what kind of person, like broken person I was inside, and I just knew like I'm a fraud, you know, like I can't do all this on my own. Like I can't keep this up. I can't like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I hear you.
Okay.
I just always wanted to get your take and your words on it.
Yeah.
But no, that's well said. I think abiding in God is a phrase we use a lot. And what? Well, let me ask you. What? How would you describe abiding in the Lord? What does that look like to Kevin?
That's a good question. Um, I feel like abiding to me is like permanently like resting in his presence and like wanting to be with him all the time. It's not like coming to church on Sunday, getting what I need out of it, and then going back to Kevin's life. It's like trying to keep my gaze on Jesus all the time and like take every thought captive. Um, how can I live more like him? What would he do in this situation? How can I know him more? How can I be Jesus to others or show them Jesus? And that's a hard thing when, especially coming from a background where that was like not part of it. But I also think for every person, it's not natural to live that way. So yeah, that's what I would say is abiding to me.
Yes, because we live in a broken world, right?
Mhm.
So it's so easy to fall back into sin or to like lose that walk with God. Like it's
Mhm.
like daily. It's literally a daily battle
Yeah, for sure.
with so much of that. And I think that ties into a little bit what you mentioned at the start of your testimony and battling pornography. First, that's brave of you to even like share that here. I know we've got a total of 15 listeners probably on this, but still, to say that I think
Yeah.
shows your walk with faith, and just to be open with that part of your story is commendable. So one, thank you for sharing that.
Mm.
Two, tying that back into what goes on in the world, especially with men like throughout, I don't know, younger than us and throughout the rest of our lives, right? Pornography and sexual temptations are just everywhere, I feel like, and only
Yeah.
getting worse and worse with social media and movies and things like that. Can just, even if you're not watching pornography, you're getting some sort of taste of it
Mhm.
in these formats. And so I wanted to know, have you tried, how have you surrendered that to the Lord? And maybe what are some like tools or ways that you've gone about battling that sin struggle? Because I myself
Mm.
have suffered from this, still battle with this from time to time. Like it is still an issue, right? And so maybe like to help educate people that might be facing the same challenges. How have you gone about it?
It's a great question. I'm not coming from a place of having figured it all out, I should say.
Of course,
Um,
none of us have.
right.
Right.
We never will.
Yeah.
Surrendering it to the Lord is tough. Has been tough because like inevitably you're gonna come up short. Um, and I just always feel like so bad, um, like I'm letting him down. And I think one thing that's taken me a really long time to understand, and I still don't know if I fully do, is this idea that like weakness and acknowledging our weakness and limitations makes room for him. Uh, a verse I put to memory, and now I'm going to test myself. I'm on the spot. Is 2 Corinthians 12, 9, and 10. Paul says, but he said to me, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. Therefore I will boast all the more gladly of my weaknesses, so that the power of Christ may rest upon me. For the sake of Christ, I am content with weaknesses, insults, hardships, persecutions, and calamities. For when I am weak, then I'm strong.
Let's go, dude.
Let's go. That idea is like has been so good for me because it's like anytime I'm in the heat of battle or feeling temptation, and I feel like I have to pull myself out of it, like I'm liable to fail. And so it's like turning to Jesus and just like sometimes getting on my knees and being like, I can't do this right now. Like, give me the strength for one more hour. Jesus, please. Like, I just, that's one answer I would give as far as how I've surrendered that to him. And I just keep trying to do that every day. Um, I would say practically, like, understanding that what's kind of the phrase, like we don't want to tolerate sin, we want to kill sin. So I know what triggers are for me. Like I can reflect on what has led me to do this. And we've talked a lot in our CG about the heart change, which is the most important part. But we can still do things to like make it harder for us to fall to that struggle. I've had Covenant Eyes on my phone for the past few months, which is a Safari blocker or a VPN. Recently took that off my phone because we found another way to block it for free with the Screen Time app and having an accountability partner who has the passcode to that, so I can't just bypass it. Completely taken the App Store off my phone, which is like so like it can be embarrassing to say, but like I clearly prove that I can't be trusted with it, and like I don't want to keep sinning. So that's one thing I've done. The last few weeks, which have been 2 very good weeks, have been because I haven't had Instagram on my phone at all. And so that was a way I found that I was tolerating sin, is like opening up Instagram. Like you kind of said earlier, like images are everywhere. Ads, social media, TV, like music, just walking around town at the gym, like seeing billboard, like it's just everywhere. And you can't completely eliminate that, but you can definitely make it harder. I think one thing that I think is a good idea is having the brick. Have you heard of the brick?
I haven't.
You have the brick. That's right.
No, I haven't.
Oh, I thought you said I have it.
No. What is the brick?
Brick is this app that you can download, but it also is like a physical piece of like equipment they call the brick. And when you put your phone next to it, once you've activated it, like you can't open, it dumbs your phone. It makes your phone like a brick. And I think that's why they came up with the name.
Yeah, clever.
I know, so clever. But then if you like leave your brick somewhere, your phone apps are all locked until you go and unbrick it by tapping your phone to the brick. So like one thing you could do with the brick is like leave it at work, which is what I would do. Like I leave work, lock my phone up, then I go home for the evening where I'm liable to, be laying around on the couch, have free time, and I can't open any apps, which is another way like that you can go about like locking stuff up and making it harder. So,
dude, that's an insane amount of discipline you have right there.
Yeah, it can even go further too. Like I have a TV at home, right. It's a smart TV. Like I have an iPad. Like, do I need to give my remote to a friend? So far, no. But like, I don't know. Maybe that, like there's so much that you can do, I think, to fight sin when you're in the headspace that like, man, I just want to kill this sin. I want to make it harder for myself. Almost like viewing yourself like a second person, or just like knowing that you're going to fall short before you do. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's so important, like what you said about killing sin, because everything you just described, I think if you were to say that just as a normal person, if a normal person's listening to this, they're like, dude, what? You're insane. Like, what?
Yeah.
You would just lock up your phone? Like,
Yeah.
are you even human? But I think that just shows, like you said, your heart posture behind wanting to kill the sin and just do everything the way that the Lord commands us to.
Mm-hmm.
And one, I commend you for that. And two, like, it's not I don't want to say it negatively, but it is kind of like the difference between like walking with God and pursuing him rather than like kind of being 1 foot in, 1 foot out. And I think a lot of people our age struggle with that, maybe not necessarily with pornography, but even with like drinking or drugs or we've talked about pride being a sin, cursing, like, we try to like do a little bit better here or there, or I don't say the F word that often, or, I'm not getting blackout drunk all the time, but I'm still going and slugging 6 beers at a tailgate or something. So, yeah, I think it just is a great, I don't know, cloud for how we can kill sin in that way.
Yeah, I would agree, and I would also add that I think community has been a big part of that too, especially like kind of being more of an infant in the faith. Like I remember early on in our kind of journey as a CG, I was in a relationship at the time, and you guys were asking me like, what are you doing to prevent yourself from like taking things too far? Like, what boundaries do you have? And I was like, man, I haven't even thought of this. And just like having God-fearing men in my life that have been through these things and have learned these things to like pour into me has been a big part of, like you said, turning it from like 1 foot in, 1 foot out to like making it more of a daily walk and abiding.
Yeah, that's good. It's almost a good segue. It's like you were reading my mind there. Thought it'd be nice to get into community and talk a little bit about that. Is this your first like real like community group?
Yeah.
Like faith followers. How has that been for you? And I guess a better way to deepen that question, like, how has this relationship with these gents, myself included, been different than maybe the relationships you would have had with like teammates or classmates and things like that?
Man, I think the first thing I would point to is that all of you guys know me more than any friend or family member like ever has. Because like the things I've shared with you guys, if I were to go and pour into someone who's like not of the faith, they'd be like, "What? I don't care," or like, "Man, you're crazy," or like, "Yeah, I do the same things. What's the big deal?" So like being known by you guys, like I kind of touched on earlier about like realizing that I'm known by God. Like, sure, I believe that, and I really do, but it's not like, sometimes it's not tangibly felt like the way it is when you're sitting here in front of me and you know me and you still love me and you still show up the next week to my house. So that is like, that's the biggest difference. And like I feel like I can tell you guys anything and it's not gonna like ruin our relationship or affect me in any other way than a positive way, where you guys are able to love me better, pour into me. Yeah, I think I kind of forgot the question, but I think that might have answered some of it.
You answered it.
Okay.
Yeah, just the difference in the relationships with walking in
Yeah.
community with men of the faith versus, I don't know, maybe some guys that might still be believers but aren't fully committed to what the Lord commands us to do. If there's anything else you wanted to touch on there?
Oh, I think that pretty much covers it. I think it's just like the difference too is you guys are pushing me towards something better. And friends who are not of the faith, or maybe 1 foot in, 1 foot out, like that's not really the case all the time. It's kind of like, oh, let's go party, let's do this or let's do that. Things that just are fleeting and leave me feeling empty. So
I think it'd be great if we could touch on the distinction right there. I think you said something really good, is that we're pushing you to walk somewhere better. Paraphrasing.
mm-hmm.
I didn't really nail exactly
I
what
think,
you said.
yeah.
But walking in tandem with God, we know that to be better because we've walked on both sides and we believe in God and we see the goodness that he has and we felt it, we've experienced it, and we truly believe that. But someone else listening to this or hearing that might be like, dude, what? Like, you have all these rules. Like, how is that better? How is like I'm going out and I'm living the best life. Like, I have all this money. I get to live luxuriously. I can drink and smoke and hook up with whoever I want. Like, it just like it. I'm fine. I'm happy. Like, I'm living the great life. You know, like why would someone say, or how would you talk to them and say? And I'm sorry, this is kind of a heavy question,
Yeah.
putting you on the spot, but like, why would you say this way is better than the worldly way? If you could practically try to put that into a sentence or two, paragraph.
Yeah, that's a big question.
It is. It's a tough one.
Man, I have been there and like I've done those things, and I know from my experience, I just still felt empty. Like, sure, maybe it's fun in the moment. I think we would be naive if we said sin wasn't fun. Like, otherwise, I don't think we would sin.
So good. Yeah.
And so, but even with that, like when you wake up the next morning, you know, violently hungover with a headache, throwing up, or whatever it is, or you leave that party or you had that hookup, like, how do you really feel the next day? Because for me, it was like, I still felt like something was missing. And I just think the things of this world like that are just fleeting, and you have to go and get the next hit the next day or the next week, the next weekend, if you live for the weekends. And I just don't think anything is permanent, and I think we will always be restless because I think we have this eternal longing in our souls that can only be filled by Jesus. I think he made us for his glory, and so I think anything short of that, we're always going to just be restless. And so I'd really sort of push back for people who say, like, I love this world, this life that I'm living. Why do I need God? I think I would start there, but I don't know. Would you add on anything there?
Dude, I think you said that so perfectly.
Really?
Like I was just hearing you talk about that. I'm like, that's a clip right there. Like, that's
Okay.
it. That was so beautifully said. That like that eternal longing that we have. Like it's restless. Like pornography, alcohol, whatever the sin struggle is, it's always going to be you're wanting more the next time, or it's never like satisfying. It's like that everlasting water, that water of life that Jesus talks about. You know, like. You're going to be thirsty forever if you keep searching, keep going after the things of this world rather than what God tells us to go after.
100%.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I had something else and I sort of forgot it.
Well, maybe it'll come back.
Okay.
We can come back to it.
Okay.
I want to talk a little bit about fasting because
Okay.
we're fasting as a church right now, 21 days of
Yeah.
fasting and prayer. And I know you said you gave up secular music.
And you remember the other thing?
What was the other thing?
Coffee.
And coffee, yeah, which is crazy to me. Absolutely bonkers.
I know.
That is a tough fast, like that in itself. So I wanted to get into it. It's only been a couple days of it, but how has that been for you, and kind of the motivation or maybe the decision behind fasting in general, and those two specific things?
I've never fasted before, in a faithful way, like in an intentional way. And I just remember TA, our pastor, saying like, it's not about giving something up. It's about
Getting more of Christ?
something like getting something better.
Something
Right.
like that? Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, and I'm like, okay, it's not about giving something up, but like I want to give something up that's hard. Like I don't want this to be like superficial. Like if I'm gonna give something up, I want it to like really affect me and lead me to think, okay, this is affecting me. I'm struggling. This is, you could say, suffering. And then be like, why am I suffering? Well, I'm fasting. Why am I fasting? Because I want to think about Jesus. Why do I want to think about Jesus? Well, Jesus suffered for me. And Jesus fasted, and he said we should fast. So all those things, like when I prayed about it, it's like, what should I give up? And I think the first few things I thought of were like alcohol, or social media. Those were the two big ones, and those are good things to fast from. But as I kind of touched on earlier, I already really am off of social media, and I really don't drink much anymore besides, an occasional drink or two on the weekends. And it just wouldn't feel like I'm really giving much up.
Right.
That's like noticeable day to day. And I knew like day one without coffee, I would get a headache.
Withdrawals.
Yeah, and I did, and it sucked. And I just remember being like, okay, why am I doing this? And I really do feel like the last 3 days, that and then music. Like every time I open my phone, I love to listen to music while I'm working. And I don't think the music I'm listening to is super like non-Christian. Like it's country music. A lot of it's like it is like about God. Some of it. But like, what would it look like for me to just every time I'm getting media, it's like worship music, just to put my mind where it should be, on Jesus, and just like let my life really be like a state of just gratitude constantly, and just reminding myself of his goodness. And so both of those things, like you said, it's only been a few days. I'm kind of ready for the 21 days to be over. but yeah, it's been good.
That's how you know you picked the right thing. When it's only a couple days in and you're already like, I need it. I want it back. Not that I need it. I want it back.
Yeah, and we don't want to be slaves to anything of this world. And like, candidly, I for sure am to caffeine. Like that's how I would get through days with less sleep, and it's just not healthy.
Yeah.
So
that's another really good point. Like not being slaves to anything, and just being fully surrendered to God. And I think what you're doing in fasting, so you're also educating me too and humbling me in some ways. It's like, yeah, we do things that or consume things that may be not viewed as like we're a slave to it, because we don't view it as like bad, like country music or coffee. Like no one would ever view that
Yeah.
as like, oh, that's normal. Like everyone, listens to music and drinks coffee, right? But like when you're putting that almost as an idol before the Lord, and now like you're going through the time where you've completely cut it out and you're filling that with Jesus, I think it really humbles your heart and allows you to reflect on, man, like there are so many things in my life that I just need to be better at letting God have control over and be more of a focal point rather than like pursuing myself and like my needs before the Lord's.
Yeah, I think that's a great point you brought up with idolizing an idolatry. Like expanding your view of what that means is can be kind of humbling. Like country music, coffee, they're not bad things. I'm not saying that people should never enjoy those things.
Right.
But like, can I go without it?
Mm.
So, yeah.
It's a good test. Good test right there.
What are you fasting from again?
Media. So like all forms of media. So like I'm not really on social media, so I don't really count that. But like TV, movies,
Dude, that's tough.
video games. Yeah, it's Sunday was really hard.
Yeah.
Because Sundays usually, like I just gotten back from a trip from Austin, so like I was mentally like tired from the work week and the driving, and then Sundays usually my routine is like I go, I serve in kids ministry, I come home, I'll have lunch, and I'll have like at least 3.5 hours. Maybe I'll like prep some stuff for dinner to make when I get home, but just to like chill and just like let my body like truly rest. And I had those 3 hours, and I was like,
What do I do?
I was like, I had some adulting stuff to get done, but that took an hour. And I'm like, what am I going to do for the next 2 hours to occupy my time? So it's like really reflecting and like evenings, right? Like stuff like this. It's where I'm able to like go back and be like, man, what else can I do with my time now that I have this availability? And how I'm wasting it sometimes too. Like just watching worthless like junk, even though I love movies as much as the next guy, but you know, there is a point, like you said, where it's like becomes like idle versus like just a way to decompress.
How did you spend those hours Sunday?
I took a nap.
Okay. Huge.
And then I also remember just literally laying in my bed for like 20 minutes after I woke up and just kind of staring at the ceiling, zoning out. Because I was like, well, I can pray. So I did that later.
Yeah.
I did that later, but I was like, I'm also going to church later. Like I'm definitely going to be fed with Jesus. But I was like, or I could read, and I really didn't want to pick up a book and read, so I just chose to just sit there and lay. And then I had to make some stuff for dinner. So thankfully this Sunday wasn't that bad, but next Sunday, this coming one's going to be probably pretty rough. I need to find things to do. Maybe I'll serve in multiple services in the kids ministry to fill it up. But
yeah. That's awesome, though.
Yeah, I mean, to each their own, right? Like, it doesn't have to be anything extreme when you're fasting. It's just like you said, just like giving something up to get more of Jesus and, replace what you would do or what you giving up with Jesus. It's kind of like the ultimate point of fasting. So that's great. That's awesome. Where'd you get that hat, by the way? I've been meaning to ask you that.
Okay, great question. I can flex even more. Okay.
All right.
I'm just kidding. Was it 2 or 3 Fridays ago? Jenny Allen, Watermark member, did a live podcast recording with JP at SMU in one of their on their campus. And me and Josiah, another CG member.
Shout out Josiah.
Shout out Josiah if you're watching. We went to the live recording, and like halfway through, they came out with all these hats, and they're like, "You can get this hat if you sponsor a kid in Peru." Our goal is to get to 200 sponsors tonight. Like we've got 200 hats to give away. Like text this number. So I texted the number, and this kid Benjamin showed up, and my heart was broken for him. I'm like, how could I not? Like, I want to sponsor this kid. And so, I guess sponsoring, to my knowledge, is like making sure he's got enough money to eat and live. So I did that, and they gave me a hat as a cool little prize.
Love it.
That wasn't why I did it, I should say. But yeah, that's where I got the hat, and I like looked it up online, and I couldn't find it anywhere. So I feel like it's like one of a kind.
That's awesome, dude.
Yeah.
It's a good color.
And I've gotten compliments on it, and I'm like, man, this could be a way to, talk about Jesus out and about.
Yeah, absolutely. Rep that Jesus merch. Get the cover.
Shout out Jesus. Yeah.
Shout out Jesus. No, that's great, dude. That's so humbling too to sponsor someone else in need and give up, some of your disposable income to help someone else out that you don't even know, probably will never physically meet or see or really know anything about other than maybe an update here or there. But like, hey, you're sacrificing that to help someone else.
Yeah, and I feel like I've never left the country, and like there's so much brokenness outside of this country that like I can't even fathom. And so like I want to be a part of the solution. So
Yeah, love it.
we need to go on mission pretty soon.
Dude, that would be sick.
Yeah.
Jocelyn's been on a missions trip, and I'm like, I need to go on one. I've been wanting to go on one for so long, just because they are like so humbling. It really puts into perspective how big the world is and how much there is a need for Jesus out there and for just kindness overall. So, yeah, I think it would be great if we got the whole group together, go on a big missions trip together. I think that'd be awesome.
Do some damage for the kingdom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. We should put that on a T-shirt.
We should. I stole it from somebody, though, so it wasn't my thing.
We don't have to say that.
Okay.
We can cut that out.
Cut that out.
Great. Yeah, that's been awesome. So we've talked a lot about faith. I want to not to completely get off topic because it's been good, but talk a little bit about your time in Dallas because we're both work transplants. So how has your experience been in Dallas? What have you enjoyed, not enjoyed? What are some fun things you've done? Maybe some food places that you would highly recommend?
Oh, man. I think first and foremost, like the thing that I love the most about Dallas is how many people there are like me around here. Like my age, like I feel like people take that for granted sometimes, but the town I lived in before I moved here, I didn't have friends from that town because it was just an older demographic, like rural, blue collar town. And so like coming here and just like, I'm like, all these people could be my friend. And I live in Uptown near the Katy Trail. And so having the trail that I can get on, like I love that. Like I love walking on the trail. I love the weather here. I don't know if that's a bit of a hot take, but like I know the summers. Pun intended. The summers can be tough, but like right now, for example, in February, it's like 80 degrees outside and sunny. And growing up in the Northwest, I think it's snowing at my parents' house, raining. That has been great. This is the Bible Belt, so that's another big thing that I've loved. Watermark itself, like a church, I've never been to a church like Watermark in my life. And then, like so many good places to eat tacos. I love the taco stand. What else? Velvet Taco is great. Torchy's is great. La Ventana is great. Oh, man. Is it Chilangos? Chilangos?
I don't know. I haven't ate that one.
Dude, they got this ribeye taco.
Oh.
That's like their signature taco. Like all the other tacos are $2.95, and then this ribeye taco is $5.95, but you got to get it.
It's worth it.
Yeah, dude. I've never, man, that was so good.
Okay.
I'm trying to think of other places that I really like. Buc-ee's.
Buc-ee's.
Shout out Buc-ee's.
Buc-ee's.
That's like, I feel like it's a Texas thing, but it's really not. Like it's a Southern thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are some of my favorites. I would say, I'm trying to think of like a good restaurant that I really like. Smoky Rose out by White Rock Lake. Have you had that?
Barbecue?
It's barbecue and Tex-Mex.
Okay.
Super good. They got a nice patio, heated and outside. They got fire pits. I think the first time I went there, I had this like chicken fried steak covered in gravy with mashed potatoes, and then the next time it was like brisket enchiladas, and they do both super well. So.
Sounds incredible. It's making my mouth water right now.
The Stockyards, have you been?
Yes, I love the Stockyards.
Of course. Even during the day, like watching the cattle run was cool. With family, I brought my parents out there when they came to visit.
It's a great choice.
Yep. The Katy Trail Ice House.
Yep.
Shout out the Ice House.
Yep.
Have you ever had a summer beer?
Which one?
It's Blue Moon with lemon vodka, and then like a lemon.
Okay. I haven't had that one.
I don't know how to describe it, but it's really good.
Summer beer. Probably pretty refreshing, right?
Yeah, and then every time you go there, they've raised the prices by like $2 more, so it's kind of getting outrageous, but it's a cool place.
Yeah, I think the Katy Trail is a fun spot to go watch sports games, hang out for sure.
Yeah, I've been to some Mavericks games. I work right across the street from the arena. Josiah's a season ticket holder, so he's invited me a few times.
I wonder if he's gonna sell them.
Dude, did you see they're offering refunds to season ticket holders?
Are they really?
Yeah, after the trade, yeah.
Holy, that is bad, dude. That's when you know it's bad.
Yeah, I mean they traded the face of the franchise.
I know. What's your take on it? Are you a big NBA guy? Or?
I am. I was a Blazers fan, or still am a Blazers fan, and they're terrible. They kind of have always been terrible. So I was starting to kind of be a Mavs fan. I'm like, look at this team. They just made the finals. Like, I got to get on board here. Luka, top 5 player in the league. And then they just shipped him off. I thought that he was one of the most untradeable players in the league. Yeah. Never would have imagined this could happen. And then to see what they got for him, I feel like you traded a 25-year-old phenom for a 32-year-old who's not as good as him. And I don't really know what the logic was. And I also thought the comments from the GM were kind of suspect about like him being overweight or like not wanting to put the work in, because I'm like, he just took you to the finals, Yeah. And everyone in this town loves him.
Yeah, I saw someone say it's like, imagine if we traded Dirk after like was it 2006, whatever.
11 or
11,
yeah.
They won in 11, but like I think they made the finals a couple years
before.
in
2000, yeah.
And lost. And
yeah,
it's like,
I see your point.
Yeah, what if we just traded Dirk after that? Like after he took us to the finals, we just shipped him off.
Yeah, that's a great analogy. Like, I feel like Luka would have eventually gotten it done.
Yeah, dude, that guy is generational, like you said. Like top 3, top 5 player in the league. He's only 25. Like he's just gonna get better, and you just shipped him off for Anthony Davis, who in his own right is a good player, but he's not Luka.
No.
And like a first-round pick and maybe a couple other bench depth guys to help with the playoff run. But yeah, I mean, championships always tell the story at the end. So
if they win one, I would say maybe forgiven a little bit. But even then, like, you only have a few more years of competing like that before you'll have to restart.
Yeah.
But yeah, a championship would go a long way. I just don't see it. I don't know. Do you?
I mean, I don't follow the NBA that much to really know. But yeah, it's hard when you trade away the guy that was everything to the city and franchise, and still expect them to win a championship just because you're losing that core nucleus player, and someone that the fans all like wore his jersey and got excited for. So like, granted, they'll still go to the playoff games and be excited, but it's probably a different feeling with like Luka on the fourth quarter, like game on the line. Kyrie, I know he's been clutch his whole career, but it's different feeling when the ball's in Luka's hand versus Kyrie's or Anthony Davis's down that stretch. Like you probably feel like we're still gonna win with it in Luka's hand.
Yeah, and I remember one of my first memories here in Dallas, like the first few weeks. Coworker took me to the Nodding Donkey. The Mavs are in Minnesota. I think it's the conference finals. Like game 3, I think it was game 3. Luka hits a game winner. The place is going nuts, and I was like, this is amazing. And like, man, now he's gone.
Yeah.
Just like that.
It's a ruthless world, the sports world, man. Sometimes it feels like the real world, like real corporate America.
Yeah.
The way they just could like fire you and replace you like overnight and not really care.
I guess everyone's replaceable, even Luka. Yeah. Wow.
Even Luka. That's crazy. So Dallas has been good. You rattle off a bunch of good food places. Did you go? Have you been two-stepping?
Oh yeah, I have.
Oh yeah.
I'm terrible at it. I've been to Billy Bob's, and then Red River is like the Dallas spot. Yeah. And I needed some teaching, so.
We should go get lessons.
You think?
Yeah.
Do you know how to two-step?
I know like some basic moves from when I first moved here. I was like taught some stuff, and then Jocelyn and I went to lessons at Red River
Okay.
one time, and it was, I mean, it's helpful in learning the basics. So
I would love to. I was convinced, almost persuaded to buy boots. So I've got some Tacovas and some jeans, and
that's all you need.
that's all you need. I think we should go do it.
Just some confidence. Just
There we go.
you just walk out there like you know what you're doing. Just spin.
Spin around.
That's what I do with Jocelyn when I get lost, and I'm like, kind of forget what move to do next. I'm just gonna spin you until I figure something out. It's kind of how it goes.
I feel like that's all you really need to be able to do.
Yeah, you need like 3 moves that are like pretty like easy and repeatable.
Yeah.
And flow together, and dude, you got it. You got it made. So, but yeah, two-stepping's fun. Two-stepping was a transition for me because in Florida in college there was like this country bar out there, but it was line dancing. So I never
See, that's what they had in Oregon too.
or seen two-step. Like I loved that place. I was like that bar, and then when I came to visit Texas with my dad during COVID, we went to a Cowboys game and we went to Stockyards, and I was like, dude, I need to move here. Like,
Yeah.
This is where I'm meant to live.
Yeah.
And then I came, and then it was like, wait, there's no line dancing. It's two-stepping. Like I was already like bad enough at line dancing. Like I knew like 2 songs like that I actually remembered the full choreography to.
Right.
The rest of the time I'm just in the back like trying to pick it up on the fly. And then two-stepping was like this is a whole new game.
Whole new world.
Yeah.
You see people there doing it that are like pros, and it's like, wow.
Dude, the people were doing like flips. Like a girl was like flying in the air, like flipping over the guy's back. People were doing splits. I'm like, what is going on? Like
You try not to hurt anybody, run into anybody.
oh,
Yeah.
that's actually the worst part.
Yeah.
Is like it just gets so crowded that you can't dance. And then if you're like me who doesn't really know a whole lot,
Yeah.
you know, like, and then you got the people that are actually like professionals, and then they give you the look when you bump into them. It's like, I'm sorry.
Yeah, man. I'm just trying to have a good time.
Yeah, it's Red River.
Yeah.
It's not a dance competition here.
Yeah. That's cool. How remind me how long you've lived here now since Florida?
June of 2022 is when I moved here, so coming up on 3 years.
And you're loving it?
Yeah, I love it. I did take a summer off. I went back to Pennsylvania.
Okay, that's right.
When that lease ended for a couple of months, but I've been here ever since then. And yeah, I love Dallas. Jocelyn likes Dallas. Obviously, it's easier for me now that my family has moved here. At least my parents have moved here, which is a huge blessing because I've been away from them for I don't know 9-ish years. So I would see them maybe a couple times a year. So it's definitely nice having them around now. But even if they weren't, like I still would see Jocelyn and I living here
Really?
for at least a couple of years. Yeah, we've talked about like North Carolina
Ooh.
possibly being the spot where like if our kids get to like middle school, high school, we still haven't really figured out how we're gonna school them entirely because we don't have to worry about that just yet.
Not yet.
But I definitely like would like to send them to a boarding school, prep school thing. And there's a lot of really good schools in the Northeast, East Coast side
Okay.
in terms of boarding and prep schools, stuff like that. So I think it would be nicer to live there, get more seasons. And then if Jocelyn's family's still in Florida, it's definitely an easier travel from North Carolina to Florida than Texas to Florida. So, we'll see. But I think Texas is going to be our home for at least 5 years.
5 more years.
At least, yeah. Because we want to get a house here.
You do.
And if you get a house, you got to be in that house for like 5 years. So it's probably going to be closer to like 6-7 years at least, I would think, living here.
And I'm sure a part of your story will be having kids before then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Definitely. I mean, we want kids. We're trying to have God, take the lead with that. I mean, as her and I've said, like if we do it our way, like because we're going to Italy in September, is like our actual honeymoon since we didn't really do one when we got married. If we did it our way, we'd get pregnant in Italy.
Okay.
And then we'd start like the kid cycle. But we're also just like, hey God, like if you want us to have a kid like before that, then let's do it. Like we're just like whatever his timing is for it. So
That's got to be kind of freeing a little bit.
it is. Yeah, it's definitely, without getting into like too many details, it's like it's freeing like that side of a relationship when you're walking with God, it's so hard, like before marriage. Like it is so hard to walk in the way that God wants you to. And I've done it both ways and doing it the way God wants you to. And then once you get to marriage, it's like, dude, it is so freeing. Like you feel so peace about it. You never feel shame. You never feel scared. It's like, you're just like, yeah, like this is the way it was meant to be all along. Like that's a reason why God tells us to do it this way.
Man, that's encouraging for someone like me who's like, man, this is hard. And yeah, to hear that it really is worth it and better.
Dude, everything is, right?
Yeah,
it's, like,
it's funny how that
literally
works.
everything the Bible says for us to do, it is better the way to do it the way God tells you to do. And it doesn't have to be as hard as we make it out to be.
Right.
But I think a lot of times it's our own pride, it's our own desires and you know, wishes that get in the way of that. But yeah, married life is good.
I'm happy for you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
So yeah, I know we've talked a lot. We got into faith, got into Dallas, talked a little bit about the sports world. I usually give. I mean, it's a little early, but we can see where this goes. Usually give time to my guests at the end to just kind of like bring up whatever you want to bring up. I've had some like crazy questions or wild topics to talk about, or it's just kind of been nonchalant. So it's, if you want it, the floor is yours there, Kevin.
Okay, I've got a few things. What if we unpack dating?
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, let's do it.
Okay, so this past weekend I was at the elementary kids ministry retreat in Pine Cove with the Watermark team. And we were sitting around a fire, and I didn't get much words in this conversation, but there were some very passionate people discussing the dating culture at Watermark. They felt like there was a lot of pressure on the men to like basically be prepared to marry someone before they even asked them on a date at Watermark. And then in turn, like there's pressure for the woman who's like, oh, this guy's asking me on a date because he like thinks I could be his wife, and like it's kind of scary. And then in addition to that, it's like men aren't asking women on dates at the church, and when they do, they feel like the women aren't saying yes. And a date, this was the last kind of point to summarize this conversation, is like a date really shouldn't be that much pressure. No. It's like, man, just go on this date, like go get a coffee or a free meal, like go get to know somebody and like see what happens. It doesn't have to be this big whole thing. Yeah. So I just wanted to see if you had any thoughts on that.
I could say a lot on that.
Yeah.
But what I'll summarize it to be is, I think that mentality on both sides is like problematic for sure. Because like you said, like you're asking someone on a date, whether it's the girl asking the guy or the guy asking the girl, like it should just be for fun. It should be like, hey, like I think you're a cool person. Like there's probably some attraction there too. It's like, let's go. Are you single? I'm single. All right. Like, do you want to go on a date and like have fun and get to know each other a little bit better? Great. Like that's literally all it should be. And then whatever comes from that, one way or another, is how it'll go. But yeah, the pressure on like being like ready to marry that person right away is just not healthy, and I don't think that's the way God intended it to be at all. Like my rule of thumb is like if you do it right, like 3 to 5 dates, you should be in the range of like, okay, like I either really like this person and want to continue pursuing this person, and I'm going to commit to like a relationship and see where that goes, and hopefully you do it in a godly way. Or it's like, if you're hesitant, especially like kind of our age, right? You should just like, if there's hesitation there, I think it's just like a red flag.
Yeah.
You should like, I think that's something I learned a lot in Jocelyn and I's like on and off period, was just kind of like, there was too many times where it was just like, it might change, might fix, like I don't know how I feel, and like all those I don't knows like should just be the red flag of like, okay, like it's just either not the right person or not the right timing, and you just need to not waste either one of those any further.
I think that's really well said. I feel like, yeah, you don't really need much more than 3 to 5 dates to kind of know whether you want to pursue, not know whether you want to marry someone, but know whether you want to pursue them.
Yeah, definitely don't have to know if you're gonna marry that
Yeah.
one. Yeah, that takes. I mean, it ranges, right? But like, it's gonna take at least a couple months of consistent time and deep conversations to align on like if marriage is really in the cards for the two of you. And if you're a believer, it's a lot easier because you have that faith to fall. Like that faith is the guiding principle through it all. So it's so much easier to guide the relationship that way rather than like the worldly way, where so many other things get in the way of it. You don't really have a North Star to guide the relationship. So yeah, getting ready for marriage within 5 dates is crazy. But I mean, I've heard people do it.
Well, there's so much it just seems like there's so much pressure in Christian dating, like that it's got to get to that as quickly as possible. Which I just don't really agree with. I mean, that is the ultimate goal, but like in the first few dates, like it really should be for fun, like you said, and just like getting to know somebody. It's evaluating.
Yeah. Yeah, you're just having healthy evaluations, and like we've talked about, like bring in your community group, bring in people that you trust who are believers, and have them meet the significant other, the person you've been going on dates for, like have them provide feedback, one way or another, and bring them into like how the dates are going and get advice and like see things like that to get outside perspective. You don't need to get into the details, right? You don't need to share everything of the dates or stuff like that. But as it progresses and as you're thinking about like committing to someone, I think you should be open to that, at least with a few people, to get just some perspective on. Because like you said, like if you're doing community right, like those people are going to know you the best, and they just want you to be happy and living the way God wants you to.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really well said. I think it's been weighing heavy on my heart because I've started dating somebody. She's great, and I'm like having a great time. And we've agreed to keep pursuing each other. And I approached her at Watermark, like without really feeling too much pressure in my heart about it. And while we were out last weekend at this kids ministry retreat, like I met so many guys and girls, guys who were single, didn't want to be, and girls who were single and didn't want to be, and they all like love the Lord, and they're like, not that dating is this, the ultimate goal, or like finding someone is the ultimate goal, but like, man, why don't you guys just like go on dates with each other? Like you're all single, you're all the same age. So like, what advice would you have for a guy who's like too scared to ask, or like thinks the girl should ask, or like whatever the case may be? Like what advice would you give?
My dad said it well when I was young. He was like, the answer is always going to be no if you don't ask. So just ask, right? And
That's good.
like that's simpler, easier said than done. But like you said, like you're at a church, you should find other godly women at church, serving, and like that should be who you're trying to pursue, anyways. And so like if you're attracted to the person and you want to get to know them better, like there's no wrong in just like almost like cold calling, just being like, hey, like saw you over there, like saw you at church the other day, like I think you're pretty cute, like
Yeah,
I'd love to take you out on a date, like would you be interested? And if she says no, she says she has a boyfriend, or like okay, like that's the worst answer you could possibly receive. Not asking her, you're still in the same situation. You're actually in a better spot now because you found out, okay, like it's a no, and you're not thinking about it and overanalyzing. So just like having the confidence to just go and do it, I think is the biggest thing, but it's also the hardest thing.
Yeah.
And the caveat to that I would add is like you have to be in your heart of hearts ready to date.
Yes.
You have to be in a mental spot that's like clear, like I'm ready. Like if I ask this girl on a date and it progresses and we get into a relationship and that relationship progresses, am I ready to commit to a marriage? If your answer to that is anything but yes, do not ask the girl on the date, because then you're just compromising yourself and putting both of you in a position where in the future where you're probably not going to want to be. That doesn't mean you have to marry that person. Doesn't mean you have to marry that person anytime immediately. You just have to be like, in my heart of hearts, like if this girl is the one I've been looking for, like I'm ready to marry her. Like, and time will tell that. But yeah, you have to be mentally prepared, have everything good with the Lord, like be walking hand in hand with Him. You don't need marriage, right? you're satisfied with God. But if you're ready for it, go ask the girl, dude.
Yeah. He does say it's not good for men to be alone. So
Yeah, he does.
I always tell myself that. But no, I think that's really well said. I would add to your point, like you're in a better spot by asking and being told no than by not asking. Like I was in that spot. Like I went and asked after like really working myself up and was told no. And I felt so free after. Like I was happy that she said no because I was like, okay, worst case scenario, I at least made her day. Like she's like, wow, someone approached me, said I look very pretty. And then I knew that I could do it, like, and it wasn't the end of the world. And so then like that frees you up. I think it's really, like you said, just doing it the first time can be kind of scary. But if you tell yourself like it's not the end of the world, like there's no like bad outcome from it, really. Because if you're approaching a godly woman, she's not gonna like shame you, you know.
Yeah, like you said, if anything, it just made her day. She's gonna be like, man, this guy asked me out on a date. Like, I didn't really want to go on a date with him, but hey, like,
Yeah.
look, that's good, cool for me.
Right. It's like, okay, well. And then the other thing I wanted to add is Josiah gave me this book by Ben Stewart called Single Dating, Engaged, Married.
I've read it.
It's a really good book. And he talks about in the evaluation part of dating, like you want to find someone who's under the same allegiance as you. Because if you didn't, like, it just wouldn't make sense. Like if you've given your life to Christ and you're trying to do what he wants you to do and make all parts of your life obedient to him, and someone else isn't, like that just doesn't make any sense why you guys would, be unequally yoked, I think is the term. But also you want to find someone who's running at the same pace as you. Maybe not, it doesn't have to be exactly the same like stage of the faith, but like running at the same pace. And for me, like I took that to heart when I asked MC out. I think that's fine to say that. Whatever.
It's on there now.
Oh.
I can cut it if
No,
you really
it's fine.
wanted.
It's fine. But she was in kids ministry and a member at Watermark in community. And these were all things on my list because I was in community at Watermark, serving at Watermark. Not that I was like, okay, my wife is in a community group at Watermark. But like those are things that helped. And when I first approached her, like I had something I could ask her about, like kids ministry, and so I think what I'm trying to say is I think good advice is to just find the godliest woman you know and just ask them out.
Is that in the book?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna
I'm
say
stealing it from Ben Stewart, but
line, I was gonna say that line sounds familiar. I feel like I have a picture of that.
JP says it too.
Okay, maybe I'm thinking of what JP said. Yeah.
Yeah, but both of them say that, and it's like that advice is so good, and I would just have to pass that on to anybody because it's like you want someone who's going to push you closer to Jesus. Like, why wouldn't you ask someone who you know that is running that race? Yeah. I'm glad we talked about this. I feel like it's such an issue.
It is. It's a bigger issue because people get in their own way about it and overthink it, and it's just like really just as simple as you said. Just like, is the woman godly? Is like, do you respect her in her walk with faith? Like, just go ask her, man. Like, worst thing that happens, she says no, or she's got a boyfriend, and you're like, all right, now I know that knowledge. Now I don't have to sit here at night just thinking about it all the time.
Yeah, and it's just frustrating to like see, like Josiah was telling me he went to the Porch New Year's Eve party, and everyone was writing that the resolution was to like find somebody, and I'm like, you guys are all here, like at the same place. Like, what's going on? You're all like, just go say hi to somebody. Yeah. And then like I went to the Porch a few weeks ago, and there's just like this weird tension around. Like everyone is like tense, and I'm like, okay, are we here for the right reason? But
I get that vibe too. Maybe the next episode we can dive deeper into some of that culture stuff that I feel like is an issue. But it's like, yeah, like girls are gonna like a guy who's confident, and, like is gonna go up to them and ask them on the date, right?
yeah,
Or it's like the same thing in like going to Red River and going to dance. It's like there's tons of people there that want to dance. You just have to be the one confident enough to go up and ask. Like more than likely they're gonna say yes. So yeah, I think it's a good topic of conversation that we need to dive into deeper when we got more time to explore it. And
I agree.
hear a little bit more about hopefully how your experience has been. So,
Yeah, hopefully.
but yeah. But anything else, my man?
How much time do we have?
5-10 minutes.
Okay, I got a question for you.
Okay.
Okay, on the topic of working out, okay, I think that we should treat our bodies like temples, and I feel like we should be, taking care of our bodies. You do this. I would say I'm trying to do this.
Do it.
I do it. Okay. But like, do you think there's a point where it's too much, like, and it becomes, I don't even know what to say. Like, is it a pride thing? Is it like, oh, I want people to look at me or compliment me? But like, do you think there can be anything bad in like working out too much, or like having goals that are like too, far fetched?
It's a great question, and that's actually something I've wrestled with a lot.
Yeah.
Because for the past two summer preps thing, I've like cut, and the first time I did it, I was like, dang, like I look good when I really focus on nutrition and carving my body. Like I can look pretty good. It's probably the best I've ever looked in my life. So I was like, I'm gonna do this again next summer. And then I did it last summer, and I was like, I perfected it. I was like, I really I love this.
Okay.
I love the way I look. But then it's like what we touched on earlier. Is it an idolization? Like, why do I care so much about how I look? Is it for other people? And when you start to ask those questions and really think about it, it does bring that up. So my answer to that, to say it clearly, I think there is a line where it becomes idolization, and where you can be in tip-top shape and not look like you're on the cover of Vogue magazine or something like that. Because I do think that does bring unnecessary attention to you, especially if you're in a relationship, or like me, like now that I'm married, like I want to look the best I can for Jocelyn and only Jocelyn. Like I just want to look hot for her, right?
That's good.
And so, and she wants to do the same for me. We're not trying to impress anybody else. So it's like it's not about like how much you look anymore when you're in that stage of a relationship, like truly like committed and like
Yeah.
faithful in that way. So yeah, I think there is a line that you have to be careful of. But there's nothing wrong with like trying to be in really good shape and to like make yourself look aesthetically pleasing, I'd say. Because like the other side of that coin is that there is the self-confidence that comes with that, right? And I think culture has done a lot, and I don't even want to say like body shaming, but like pushing the narrative for people to become more physically fit. And I think there's a lot of like good that comes from that. And I'm honestly of the belief that like, why don't we all like go back to like the Roman days where like looking like a Greek god was almost like the standard, you
Yeah.
know, like every man especially was in like really good shape. And so like in a leader of a house and protecting your family, like I do think you need to be of that adequate. But like I said, there is a line where, and I think each person can feel that when you're going through that process of like, okay, I'm not doing this to get into shape. I'm not doing this for strength. I'm not doing this for my significant other. I'm doing this for me now, to draw attention to me. And that's when it becomes problematic.
That's good.
I don't know. Do you have a take on it?
Yeah, well, the reason I ask is because someone asked me, like, why are you working out? And I'm like, I didn't even know how to answer it. I'm like, I don't know. So the more I thought about it, I'm like, on the one hand, I think it's really like the healthiest thing you can truly do. Not just like the way you look physically, but this idea that like you get in what you put out. Like there's no other place in the world where you like truly whatever you put in is the results you see. And like it's also really slow. So you skip the gym one day, you're not going to notice it. If you go to the gym one day, you're not going to notice it. But like over time, you do. And so like I think that can really lead to like discipline just in every other area of your life. Like you make that your lifestyle. Like I don't feel good today, but I'm going to go do this thing because that's kind of what life is all about. And so to that end, I think it's healthy to like continue to do that as a lifelong process and continue to strive to be better than you were the day before. But like you said, like if you're coming at it from that angle, like that's healthy. But when it's like, oh, I just want to like, I'm doing this for me. I want to bring attention to myself. Like I want to look a certain way, so I get comments on Instagram or whatever the case is. Then it doesn't feel healthy. But like walking that line can be kind of tough.
It is, and it is really hard. And there's nothing wrong with having a six pack and being chiseled, and there's nothing wrong with that at all. But like if your goal is to look that way, to have other people look at you, then that's the issue. But like you said, there's so much good that comes from working out, the discipline, the mental health, the health benefits, like all that stuff. I think everyone should work out.
Yeah.
It's a good topic, man. It's a good. I got a lot to say on that stuff, but
we kind of bounced all over the place.
Yeah, we did. I like it. It's usually how they go, but really appreciate you coming on.
Thanks for having me, man. This was fun.
Yeah, helping me kick off the podcast back in 2025.
Yeah,
calling this the CG series.
I love that.
So
I wonder have you ever had like more than one guest?
What did I do? I did a family one once.
Okay.
I don't know if I ever actually like posted it. I think it came out really bad.
Okay.
So I've had visions of like wanting to do like couples ones and things like that. The only issue is like I have 2 mics.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit harder.
Okay.
I did one like round table once. I'm actually on like my trip to Mexico with a bunch of my friends.
Oh, wow.
We just sat around a circular table and just like we talked about the most random stuff ever. I didn't post it either. But like, yeah, it was just kind of like grab the mic, whoever's talking about stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, is there a reason?
Well, I just thought it'd be fun to get like a couple more of the guys like together and as part of the CG series.
Yeah. No, I mean, as we were talking, I was like, once we get everyone's like individual story, I think it'd be sick if we all got together in a room and just kind of like talked, had a CG session in an informal way almost.
Yeah, we've had some good talks with the whole CG for sure. So cool to film one of them.
I think there's so much good dialogue, not even just in faith, but just like in life that we've had. That's like super like that. I just wish I captured it because forget it,
Yeah.
So, but yeah, we'll definitely have to run that up. That would be a lot of fun. So,
well, cool, man.
But yeah, appreciate you coming on.
Yeah.
We'll definitely have you on again.
Okay.
And yeah, I guess this will wrap this week's episode up, and we're kicking off the new podcast, new year, new me type of vibe. And,
new you.
Yeah, that'll close this week's episode. We appreciate you guys. We'll see you next time.